G'day fans and welcome back to yet another exciting episode of DNA Reviews where Aaron and myself get to talk about one of the most famous topics in the entire universe, Docky Who. What can I say? Third week in, mate, my mind is just blowing up with all this exciting stuff. Aaron, how are you keeping it together, son? Because you look so cool all the time when all this really groovy stuff is going on.
I know. I would just be exploding, except I've been watching Andor in between to keep me grounded.
That's what we like to see. Absolutely fantastic. People are joining us already. We've got Greg and we've got Christy and we've got Russell as well. Absolutely. Even Colin, they're dropping. Look at this. They're all rolling in like absolute oranges, which is a very, very groovy. So for those who are wondering, yes, Mr. Greg, it is talking about the old Docky Who, which is particularly cool because that is exactly what we're here for, Mr. Aaron. And of course, we're plowing through into the third episode. It's a hole in the ground with water in it. Yes, it is The Well. And before we kick it off, as always, there will be spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, the episode, I'm sure everybody has by now. We're going to be ruining it all for you, Mr. Aaron. But how excited are you about the old Well, son?
Well. We can talk about it and go through this because I'm pleasantly happy this series that we've maintained a standard of episodes that I'm enjoying.
Two things. Now, for those who have never seen this show before, you won't get this joke. Rusky Babes has joined us and actually spelt it correctly, Docky Who, not D-O-C-C-Y, which is Dossy Who, so good on for that. And as a joke from last week, Sean has said he's watching something else and he's leaving us. So, because that's what happened last week. One of our regulars popped in to say that they were going. So, unbelievable. And Chrissy said she just finished watching the episode about 15 minutes ago. Everybody's watching this live pretty much knows the format, but for those who don't know, what we do with the episode is we go through what we call the good, the bad, and the ugly, the good bits, the bad bits, and the bits that we like to question or discuss or get the conspiracy theories going on. So it's not all of one or all of the other. It's a little bit of everything. And Mr. Aaron, old son, before we kick it all off, is there anything you wanted to say about The Well before we get rolling?
I think we're going to be discussing every aspect of The Well, but anyone who wants to participate, feel free to throw in a question. But remember, only 20 or 30 people watch this live and much more watch it later. So we can't get to everyone's question because sometimes it isn't so easy when you're rewatching it to see what we're talking about. So bear that in mind and keep the questions concise.
20 or 30 watching. If only, dude. We're lucky to get like a dozen sometimes. So I tell you what, 20, 30, he's like, mate, I say, send those questions in, fans. It'd be absolutely fantastic. But anyway, it's all about the quality, not necessarily the quantity. And with that in mind, it is time to kick off The Well. As always, we start with the good. So, Mr. Aaron, away you go, sir.
Again, I really like how this series hits the ground running and every episode has carried on directly from the previous one. So when we go to the pre-opening title sequence, they're still in their costumes from last week and they're still sort of discussing this year's story arc of getting Belinda back to Earth and trying to triangulate through space and time why they can't do it. The only thing, I think this is good. The only thing that's maybe a bit of a negative, they must have been up and adventuring for about 3 days straight now with no sleep.
Do you think so? Is that how you sort of interpreted the time period?
I think so. Maybe. Well, why would they go back to the TARDIS and sleep and still be in last week's outfits?
Okay. I mean, I just interpreted they just like you just bookend the two episodes together, but I mean, I could be completely wrong. But yes, it was good that it carried over straight from last week, and they've still got this whole thing about May the 24th this year. If your birthday, by the way, not you personally, but anybody's birthday is actually May the 24th, I mean, they'll be going, oh my God, how cool am I? Especially if they're a Doctor Who fan.
And if their birthday's May the 25th, too bad, the world's gone.
Well, exactly right. I can imagine some expectant mothers out there going, I'm just going to hold on to my kid for a little bit longer. It's like, May the 24th is the day we want him. So, which is very, very groovy. And of course, they eventually do get their clothes changed. It was a bit of a wanky sequence doing this big, they've got the Poison song from Britney Spears. Don't know what the deal was with all that. But they do come out in their fancy spacesuits and thinking they're the greatest things in the entire universe. And that, of course, brings us into this bit, Mr. Aaron.
Yep, so again, they hit the ground running, come straight out of the TARDIS into a lineup. Now, the TARDIS must have it's getting more and more. We're going to discuss this later. I guess intuitive, which with the spacesuits it chose for them, because they come out of the TARDIS into a lineup of Marines and do a drop from high altitude or from space, I guess, and their scream as they go out and jump over the edge of the drop ship goes into the Doctor Who opening title. So 2 weeks running, I think they've had a really good crash into the opening titles.
Yep, I tend to agree with you on that one. Christy said sleep is a great plot point in the TARDIS. And Russell has said that's a drawback of the continuous narrative episode lengths, not just these stories, but at various times throughout the series. Yeah. So, but that is okay. So if there is somebody who missed episode 2 and straight from 1 to 3, they'll be going, why are they wearing those clothes? But it is all very, very groovy. Obviously, the question, when do you see them eat or drink? It's like most science fiction TV shows, unless there's a plot point for them to have something to eat or something to drink, they won't. So don't let that worry you. Now, this part, I'm glad you brought this up as a question, because I wanted to ask you about this. But you go first, Mr. Aaron, when they first land on the planet.
Well, again, I think straight away we're seeing the production value of this series on the screen, where I think it was really good that it looks like, and it can hold up as a movie. I mean, there are scenes where I look at it and go, and I think this is a homage as well. This is looking very like Aliens, and we've got like the spacesuits with the lights like on the original Alien movies, and where the story is very like Aliens to a point, but we've brought back the psychic paper, and I think this is good because the Doctor uses psychic paper, and whatever he projects onto it, he sees. And the reason they do this is they don't have to spend a whole episode getting everyone to trust them. So it's really a convenience to jump that hole. Who's going to trust him? All of this kind of thing. And this time he's just projected into everyone's minds that he's the highest ranking or higher ranking Marine than the ones that are there. So I think this is good because you get rid of a lot of the tropes of not being trusted and having to work out that he's a good guy and things like that.
2 things. I love the space scene at the top when you see like the Saturn planet and whatever else. That looked really, really good. And I, as a non-Doctor Who fan, had absolutely no idea what the deal was with the identification card. So I'm kind of glad you explained that, because I'm going, I don't get it. So what is it? 3 words or less exactly. What is it? He projects what he wants people to see in it. Is that a new thing, or has that always been there?
No, it's been around since the new series. It was used heavily in the Russell T Davies era, and they kind of forgot about it until it's come back. It's psychic paper. It's basically whoever thinks, if you think about it strong enough, the person will see it. And so when he says to her, "Who's your commanding officer?" And as soon as he knows the name, he says, "Well, I'm above him." He projects that onto the paper, and she sees that he's got credentials.
Okay, so would Belinda have seen that as well? Yeah, I get that. Would Belinda have seen that as well, or just seen the blank sheets of paper?
No, she wouldn't have seen that as well. That's why her dialogue was a bit awkward, I thought, where she's talking about, we're like the secret shoppers. But just imagine it's like a multi-pass to get you anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, well, there you go. So I guess all Doctor Who fans thought, that's awesome, and outsiders like me going, eh. Question from Russell. Do you know if the setting was a dressed-up real industrial site? I'm going to say yes is the answer to that question, or a constructed set.
I don't know. When we do these reviews, I try not to look too much at the behind the scenes or anybody else's reviews, just so ours is fresh. I would say it looked like both to me. Some things were obviously studios, some were obviously on location. That's a good thing, though. If you're asking, it means they did a good job.
Yep, totally agree. So you are right. I mean, it has a very strong Aliens feel. There's even a quote that's come straight from Aliens within the show, but that doesn't necessarily mean it looked bad. And to be fair, this is the kind of stuff that tickles my fancy, all these really busted up corridors and rooms you don't know what's going on with, and it will look very groovy, Mr. Aaron.
Again, I was watching this. I've watched it on big screen TV and a couple of times on laptop. The detail and definition now, it blurs the lines between TV and a motion picture, and I understand they've got to do that to keep up and impress everyone. But this one was another one like last week where I thought the direction was great, the locations were great, and the sets were also matched up to all of that. There were very few scenes, and there were a couple where you sort of go, well, that's maybe not as good as a motion picture, but I thought they did a really good job.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I thought, oh, this is very, very cool. This sort of stuff is really groovy. People walking through empty rooms, got the torches on the guns, and they don't know what's going on. And of course, there's always going to be a sound coming from somewhere. When they came out of the TARDIS dressed in the spacesuits, is it sheer fluke? They happen to be wearing exactly the same spacesuits as the rest of the Marines. How does that get
Well,
explained? Or is it just like, don't worry about it, just move on, son?
we're going to address that later, but I think there is a reason why, and it's might come into play. This is just a theory, but usually when the TARDIS gives the Doctor and his companion spacesuits, it's this orange one that they've used all through all the other episodes. But I think there is. Well, we'll talk about it now because I think
Keep
because
quick. Mm.
I think because the Earth is gone, those spacesuits were from Earth. So there is no, all through this, they talk about there is no Earth anymore. So the spacesuits have even changed. So when the TARDIS gives them spacesuits, it's not the normal orange ones from Earth that they usually get.
Mm. That's okay. I thought, what a fluke that they just have to match up with everybody else who they've never actually seen before. The TARDIS chooses the clothes, which means they would have come out in their spacesuits thinking, oh, this is different to what we normally have, and it just happens to match up with everybody else. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's all good. As we said, they walk through all the rooms with the busted mirrors. This is always good stuff to look at. I mean, you can make it a bit more atmospheric, a bit more smoke and steam and dark lighting, but it still worked. And yeah, very groovy.
I did think this was quite good as well because going from BBC sets in the past and busted up rooms, this was a level above that. And the other thing I really enjoyed was the dialogue in this actually wasn't useless dialogue. It actually did drive the story. So when they're talking about like the mirrors being broken, that's going to come back. Also, if you're thinking maybe there's a returning villain, the Mara, which has been mentioned in this series before, can't stand mirrors, but that was something that didn't come back into it. So I do like where they set up a mystery, and that mystery is answered. I do like the Chekhov's gun way of writing a script. The one thing in that scene, I don't know if you noticed, Belinda goes into one room, the mirror's broken, and she comes out and she says, every single room in the whole base, the mirrors are broken. And I was like, well, either that happened off screen or they made a bit of a plot error there.
Yeah, as you can say, upon reflection.
Yeah.
Russell, just want to echo what you said about how it looks good on screen, and it does, because in the past they couldn't do Nostromo type sets, and they had to use dodgy alternatives. In this case, you can. Once we've said this last week, you can see the money on the screen, and that actually works really, really well. And just quickly, yes, the exact matching outfit seems odd. Normally, you'd think the TARDIS would be more generic, casual clothes from the time they are visiting. So clearly, it's just a way of getting around the story. But if you sit and analyze, you go, what are the chances? And of course, the helmets have to fit as well. What are the chances they just happen to connect on? But it's okay. It's like one of those. If you're focusing on that, then you're focusing on all the wrong things. So as they say in the classics, move along and move along. Speaking of which, we're still going with some dead dudes, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, I thought this was really good as well because you are setting up. Okay, there's high stakes. Everybody's dead, or it seems everybody's dead. You've got a nurse there who examines them, and yes, they've been dead for a while. And then the doctor's adding, broken everything. So it's not just like something that kills you. This is something that breaks every bone in your body, kind of thing. So I did like as they discover things. It's a bit like Aliens, but instead of the first 45 minutes building up, they condensed it down to 5. But there's a lot of good plot points and a lot of exposition that doesn't come across as exposition. So that's really good when you can do it like that.
Well, it's also very different too, and I've got to give him credit for this because normally in stories like this, however the alien has killed everybody, it's always the same way. Either everybody's been shot or everybody's been torn apart. But in this, they're saying half have got broken bones and half have been shot. So you go, all right, well, the shooting part, they've obviously shot each other, but the broken bones part is very, very left field. So you've actually got something unique and different. And I thought that was actually quite clever because then you're clearly thinking, all right, this is something different. And I actually had to applaud them for that. And of course, that moves on to a later sequence, which is just like this.
Yeah, so we're sort of introduced to the main guest character, I would say, and it's a great introduction because again, she's introduced. Whenever you want to make someone seem harmless and small, you introduce them like this, very wide shots where they're very tiny in the center of this huge set. And this is another one of those things where I think it must have been in studio because that set must have been digital because you only saw it that size in the opening opening scenes, and then it went down to a much smaller version of it. But again, it looked a lot more grandiose than you normally get with a Doctor Who set on a base under siege kind of situation. So I have to give them that, and I have to give them for mentally setting up how you feel about the character just by the way it was directed.
Yeah, totally agree. Really well done. And like my other half actually watches Lynn, and as soon as Elise came up, she goes, "Oh, she's shifty. She's dodgy. Don't trust her." She's obviously watched a lot of horror movies in her time. She might look sweet and innocent and all that, but no, there's something wrong about her. So yeah, very very cool.
Well, Doctor Who, I've had this as a good. Doctor Who has tackled, I guess, disabled characters before, and it always comes across as clunky. Or if you go back, maybe it was appropriate at the time, but it's aged quite badly. I would have to say, well, this is one of the best ways they've actually tackled someone with a disability, and this is their death. And it is really good because it comes back into the plot, and there are reasons why she survived, and there's reasons why she's acting like she does. So I have to give credit to the actress on this one. She was really good and put in a very emotional performance that I think everyone was able to act off and get a top sort of rapport off from the different sort of angles they were coming from. So you had the doctor's relationship with her, and then Belinda's because she's a nurse, and then suspicious Marines and Marines that want to give her the benefit of the doubt. So I thought she was a great central character to have in this episode.
Most obvious question of all from Russell: is she actually a genuine deaf actor or a hearing impaired actor? I'd have to say definitely yes.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, I could see that. And yeah,
You could. Do you know how
actually,
you could tell? Every time they yelled "cut," she didn't stop acting.
you're a freaking idiot. So they just when they do cut, they just do this. Yeah, exactly right. And of course, as like Lynn, my other half said, "Oh my God, suspicious, dodgy. You just don't know what's going on." She's just sitting there on the box. What do you reckon, dude? A bit of tension in the air, son.
Yeah, well, I like this, and you know what added to the tension? They almost tried to do this in the Robot Revolution, and it failed, where they did the only every ninth word you can hear. What added to this was the technology they had allowed people to communicate with a deaf person because of the holographic projectors that had the words up. But if they weren't facing her, or if the person wasn't using one of those, there were different levels where some people could hear them and some people different and didn't, and the doctor was signing and no one could understand. And the great thing about that is the audience didn't know. They were as much in the dark as the other characters, because when they were signing and the translators were working, there were subtitles. But when they were signing and there was no translators, the subtitles on Disney Plus stopped, which I thought was a really ingenious thing as well. So I was really impressed how they handled the situation with interacting with a deaf person in this episode.
I mean, you can argue it's like, what are the chances they happen to have these holographic doodads that have all the words come up? But it did work. It was very, very clever, and the fact you can actually project your text onto another person. I thought, well, that's a way of getting around a particular problem. We've got Alice is facing left. We needed to turn right, so I'll get my message sent over to the dude over there. Very, very well done. Very well thought out. The chances of it actually occurring in real life are probably very slim, but for the narrative, it worked very well. So yeah, and the funny thing is when you get translators like that, you just want to put it to the test and just make up words that don't exist. You go blah, 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 and just see how it spells it out. There's all these PFs and W's and go, "Hey Alice, how you going?" So, yeah. And you'd be going, "What the freaking?"
I'm glad you weren't writing the episode.
Oh dear. Very, very cool. So, and with that, I'm going to move on.
So we have, again, this was to do with the signing stuff, where the doctor actually says signing makes some people paranoid, and they talk about how in the future nurses, legally nurses have to be able to sign. So it is one of those things that's probably the plot point. It explains why they have those devices actually, where and if you notice, not all of them have them, because they have to pass the ones they've got around from character to character as well. So it was an interesting way that added a different dimension to this story that seldom happens in Doctor Who.
Yeah, you're right. There were budget cuts on that. Chrissy's on the right track. They would have been in brief that there was a deaf person on the base. Yeah, fair call. So they would have been prepared for it. And I like the idea that signing still makes some people paranoid. Just out of curiosity, why do you reckon that would be? Because other people can't understand it? Be different?
Yeah,
It was speaking a different language.
It was because the Doctor and her were signing, and the soldiers couldn't understand what they were saying. So instantly they were caught off guard with they're not knowing. If she was, if they were suspicious of her and they don't know the Doctor and they come in and start communicating and no one knows what's going on, they are paranoid to know what they're saying to each other.
I thought it was just more like the fact that he was signing and they were paranoid about the signing. I mean, it's kind of ironic that he knew actually how to ASL or whatever the American version is, or the Australian version of sign language. It would have been funny if they're talking completely different languages and moving their hands. But I guess it's all lucky that it all worked out being the same across the board.
They could have done that gag where the Doctor goes, "Oh, I've got one of those in my pocket."
Yeah. You're a freaking idiot. Anyway, we get into the well part. Finally get to see a hole in the ground with water in it. Mr. Aaron, how cool was this?
Again, I thought this was amazing. I guess they've called it the well, and they have put that set up to the point where I couldn't tell if it was a real industrial complex or if it was put up as a set. It looked big. It seemed to go on forever. The well actually looked deep. It didn't look like a model. Obviously, that was all produced. And then the technology around it all kind of fit. You could truly believe this was a mining operation on another planet. And then they start to uncover the mystery of what happened and what came out of the well. And I thought that was done really well too, where you have the people sort of, they know something's gone on, they don't know what, but they've got video cameras, and then they unlock the video cameras by getting rid of the restraining bolt, which is another nod to
Star Wars. Yeah,
to Star Wars, and the Doctor is able to do that and start solving the mystery. So this story, there was really no, wasteful dialogue. I thought this was quite packed all the way through.
Yeah, exactly right. It's funny, but his little dodgy sonic screwdriver fixes everything. Suddenly the videos work and everything's up and running. It kind of works. You got to get through the fluffy stuff, and they got to find out what was happening. And I like this one. This is the only picture you've got with absolutely no dialogue added in at all.
Well, this is really interesting, and I really love the way the sequence played out, where it was cut between the Doctor and the commander discovering what was happening and where they were at the same time as Belinda was working out with the soldiers what was happening. Now, I don't know if you can see very well. They're the 3 times you could see the alien behind her. And I tell you what, Dags, Doctor Who has not given me a jump scare where they actually got me for a long, long time. And I think the second one where they did this and you saw it and it moved back behind her, they had a huge big crash of music as well, which is always a treat to give people a jump scare. But it actually gave me one, which is really unusual for Doctor Who. So that's a really big good from me.
2 things. I thought the actress, and we did discuss this already, was fantastic. I think she was the best character in the entire thing by a country mile. When I got Lynn, my other half, to watch, we had to watch it on the computer, which has actually got a better sound system. And I said to her, look, I've got to crank it up to give you a better atmosphere. Well, anyway, she shit herself. The bang moment. Absolutely jumped back. And I thought, that's what we want to see. I agree. I mean, it's in the sound. The sound is what does it. But it was very, very clever and very unexpected. They handled that extremely well. So we get around to talking about the actual planet itself. And, of course, this is something that you would have dialed into because the docky has been there before, Mr. Aaron.
It has. Now, I kind of thought there was going to be a returning villain in this. It's been rumoured for a couple of weeks. When they were talking about there's something on your back, there was an episode where Donna had a spider bug thing on her back, and could have been that. Because it was down a well, there was another thing, the Satan pit, it could have been that. I was thinking last week it might be the flood, because what's at the bottom of the well? Water, and we've had Mrs. Flood. No, they actually did surprise me with the entity. It's called the Midnight entity from the episode Midnight, and it is a scary one because it is one of the few times the Doctor doesn't know what happened and wasn't the one that defeated the entity and just got the hell out of there kind of thing. And, he has the revelation that it used to be a diamond planet, and that was 400,000 years ago, and that's turned to Mercury when they've got rid of all the diamonds. But I did think it was a good reveal. The only thing it might not have been a good reveal for is it is a pretty obscure monster. New series Doctor Who fans would probably remember it, but might not remember the story well. If you just started watching it, you'd have no idea what was going on.
Sean has made a point of saying, not sure Midnight deserved a sequel, but it seemed to work. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I totally agree. I liked this as much as Midnight, but it was a different beast. The Midnight was set on like a tour bus on the planet, and they couldn't get out of the bus spaceship, and they were being attacked. The other thing is the entity kind of changed in that one. When it took someone over, they would start repeating what everybody said. So they did change, I guess, but to do the same thing over again would have maybe been boring. So change is good, but I don't think it was bad. It was a good way to link it back. But yeah, in some ways, Sean's right. You didn't need a sequel to that either, but they've done a good one, so that's okay.
Cool. No worries. And Chrissy just made a point of remember the monster as a mimic, which was from Edge of Tomorrow, Day After Tomorrow. No, Edge of Tomorrow. I think they had mimics. So, yeah, very cool. Anyway, shit starts throwing down, Mr. Aaron. What do you reckon?
Yes. So the Doctor realizes it's a whole lot worse than he thought, and comes in and starts to try and take control of the situation. And by this time, they've started to piece together what is going on and the rules to, I guess, this version of the encounter with the entity, which is it's on the person's back, and they're working out, how to deal with it, what they can and can't do, and what they're going to do to get out of the situation. And I still thought this was pretty good. The story was holding pretty well.
Yep. It was a nice way of tackling the situation because, I mean, that whole thing, everybody's looking around. Where is it? We can't see it. And, of course, there's plenty of stories of invisible aliens. But for the audience, for us, we're relatively familiar with it. But for these guys, of course, it's a brand new issue. But, yes, very groovy.
So I did think the first sort of encounter with the soldiers and the alien was done really well. It could have almost been ridiculous. Now I've watched it a couple of times. If anyone knows Monty Python, where they have the bridge they have to cross with a question, and if they get the question wrong, they sort of zoom up into the air and die. It starts reminding me of that. But yes, what I do like about this is because we saw the stuff in the past with them looking at the bodies, it explains that every bone in their body is crushed. So I presume when it picks them up, it crushes them and throws them. It's not them hitting anything that kills them. They're just pulverized by grabbing them. And when you see how fast it gets rid of the soldiers, they're up against something that's very hard for them to deal with.
The only issue, and this is a question I had, is don't get behind it because things happen. But of course, there's a point where she's following the dude around and her back is actually to everybody else. And I thought, hang on, how does that work? Is it because she's not under threat or whatever? But I thought, they're breaking their own continuity here because the moment she turns around facing the guy behind her, that's when that should be happening everywhere. But it kind of didn't until there was an actual threat. So maybe that's what was supposed to happen.
Well, we talk about that in the bads because there are some things that don't really make sense as well. But let's keep going on the goods for now.
Very good. And just quickly from Russell, he made a point of saying, which is probably a valid point about unlike 20th century shows, the show in the 20th century, he doesn't know the revived series off by heart. So there's a lot of things that are occurring in terms of monsters for the newer shows that he's not going to be very, very on top of. So I guess it would be the same for everybody for a lot of people regarding that. So they go, well, we know the baddies in from 30, 40 years ago, but not so much for the new ones.
I'm in Russell's boat where I would prefer it to be, Sutek or someone from the past. But you've got to remember the new version of the show is 20 years old, and kids who grew up with that are going to love the monsters from 15 years ago as much as we love the older ones. So I don't mind as long as it's a good story. It doesn't matter what the villain is, really.
Yep, fair enough too. All good.
Okay, and then we start getting. Sorry, I think if I'm echoing, I'm just going to put my sound down a bit to see if that fixes it.
I couldn't hear it, but that's okay. Yep, go for it.
Okay, so this is one of the pivotal scenes in the story for me because it works on different levels, and it's about the communication and about the alien, but also about, prejudices, where they actually do the thing that is rude, where the doctor turns her back on her so she can't see what they're saying, and she's like, "Please don't turn my back on me." But that has double meaning because she knows that people who have these things on their back can kill her, but it also means she can't communicate when no one's looking at her. So it has a double meaning, and I found that quite touching, actually.
Yeah, that is probably the ultimate insult for a hearing impaired person is turning around so they can't see you talk. Oh, actually, Christy just said exactly the same thing. A very rude thing to do to a deaf person. Yeah, exactly right. But then, of course, the doctor wants to talk to said alien. Is that right, dude?
Well, it is, and we've got this thing here where we find out that he's addressing the alien on the back, and he tells her that it is a bit hard to understand, but I've watched it enough times now. If you have it on your back and it whispers to you, you eventually go mad. And because she can't hear it, she hasn't gone mad. She's just got it on her back. And that's why everyone on the base is dead, and she's the only one that survived, because without them killing her, the alien is just stuck on her back and can't drive her mad. So he realizes that and starts addressing the alien. And the alien knows the doctor's name, which is really unusual. And the thing about this that is really sad, when he finds out that the alien knows his name, he cries. And this is the one time it was warranted where he would have got that reaction. David Tennant cried in Midnight. It was one of the few times he cried because this alien was so devastating. If he had not cried in every single episode up until this one and cried at this point, this is the only time I think it would have been warranted, and it would have made the episode better. So I've put it in the good because it was good and it was hard hitting, but it was just undermined by how many times he's been a crybaby, as Christy pointed out.
Yep. So Russell's made a point of saying about your audio. Now, before you do anything, can anybody else confirm if Aaron's audio is still a problem or whether he's fixed it now? But yeah, I totally agree with you. When you do things too many times in previous episodes and they're not necessarily warranted, when it really does happen and you really need it to hit home, it's like, Christ, not again, and it just ruined the moment. So yes, it's crybaby alert, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, very cool.
Okay, and the other thing that I think was really good was it's brought up that the mine is a mercury mine, and I didn't guess this. I actually thought there's these big silos. You can see one behind the doctor there, which kind of looks like a yellow silo. I actually thought they were going to shoot those, and it was going to be diamonds that came out that helped defeat it or something. But having the waterfall of mercury used as a mirror to show behind it, so there's something behind the thing behind that will instantly kill it, I thought was a really ingenious way to deal with the monster, and it was not one that I saw coming. I kind of was trying to guess, but I didn't see that, so I thought that was a really good point as well.
This is where you need to digitally impose the Thing from the 1982 version of the Thing, with all the bits hanging out and dog heads and bloody dudes and all this sort of stuff, and you go, oh my God, that is just completely scary as. So, yeah, that would have been kind of cool, because in this, you're kind of looking for it. It's like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And then all of a sudden they cut away as they sort of ran out the room. So, yeah.
I was hoping it had come through the waterfall and you wouldn't see it, but it'd almost look like the id from Forbidden Planet.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say something like the T1000, or all chromy, and because it's in Mercury, or something like that, or the Silver Surfer or whatever else. But yeah, very, very cool. And they did add, the diamonds were mined out a long time ago. But we're still sticking with the goods, Mr. Aaron, which is a positive thing.
Now, the good here is what they didn't show. These are the scenes where the alien is in it. You can't really see it when she's thrown away from it. The doctor says, I really want to see it, which I think was really stupid of him to do. That
Yes.
black box under the good there, if you really strain, you can just about see it. But what I thought was really good, they made the creature, but they didn't show it. And I think it was a lot better episode for them not showing it.
Yeah, even Lynn, my other half, said, "Why are they stopping?" It's like, "What are you doing, you friggin' knob? Run, go! The thing's dangerous." So that was kind of stupid in a lot of ways. And even Russell, as an industrial chemist or a former industrial chemist, said hanging around liquid mercury is not a good idea. Take that, doctor. So yes, very very cool. And of course, we get to the end bit, and it's like, "Oh my god, dude, who's staying and who's going?"
Well, I thought this was good as well, where you, of course, they're not going to get out that easily. Um, they've got the first lot of plebs out the airlock. Of course, it's all the no-name characters that go first. But the
Including Alice. Alice is
yes,
gone,
I was
so
going to say,
she's
but
now
the
out of the
deaf
picture.
girl
So yeah.
Alice did get out. So that was good. She's going to be reunited with her daughter, which I thought was a good, emotional way to connect the audience with the character as well. But of course, one of the people in the airlock has farted before they got their helmets on, and now they're trying to work out who it is. And the doctor says he's pretty sure it isn't him, and you've got the other two soldiers not sure, but it's like it turns out that Belinda cut one off before they could get out, and she's the one who's got the entity in her.
So why wouldn't it have gone to the old Docky? He seems to be the most logical one that the alien would have tried to attach to. Any theories behind that?
I think from looking at the positioning of them, she was just the closest one to the door.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fair enough. All good stuff. Well, anyway, there's a bit of an action scene that happens, which I think we get covered off a bit later on, and that's it. The commander in chief is off and running, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, and so I did think this was a good thing where you do actually have the commander who is a good, honest, honourable person and takes the entity into her, and they have a flashback. She talks all about the skull sharks and stuff like that she avoided when she was a kid. And I don't know if you noticed this. See in the big picture there, you can actually see a massive skull that almost looks like a T-Rex or something. So the monsters she's running through running from are indeed very real. And she does another alien homage where she does a Sigourney Weaver almost, where she falls backward down into the well. The well is 5 miles deep, so she won't survive, and hopefully the entity is trapped down there again. Or is it?
Yes, it'll burst out of her chest halfway down the tunnel. Very, very cool. And this is our last of the goods, Mr. Aaron. How good is this?
This is another unusual ending for Doctor Who. Usually it's all wrapped up and everybody's happy, and this ended on maybe the alien escaped, but we don't know. And I think it was really good because they didn't answer it either way. They could have had one shot where you heard the whispering on the back of one of the Marines, but you didn't. And it kind of cut off with her saying, "Are you okay?" "Oh, it's nothing." And then, of course, the super extra amazing good is next week has Ruby back.
So maybe they took a leaf out of John Carpenter's book, and as Greg said, it was a wasted sacrifice. Was there more than one entity? Because in John Carpenter movies, whenever you thought everything is wrapped up, suddenly there's a little scare at the end. Oh my God, the alien survived, the monster survived. Maybe they took a leaf out of that particular book.
Well,
you would like
the thing
to think
I
it's wrapped up.
I haven't put it in because I thought, it's too grasping at straws. But there was that scene at the end when they were all talking to each other, and only the Doctor's breath was showing in the cold, and that's the same as the end of the thing.
Oh, okay, very, very cool. All right, we get into the bads, and if there was a bad in the episode, it was probably a bad as such. It's such a low bad, it could have actually, I think, needed to be deleted from the actual sequence. I was pissed when I saw this, and even my other half said, "Nah, that's just not right. It's this bit."
This is really bad on two different levels. The Doctor calls someone babes, and the person is not impressed, and he says that's not appropriate. And then he turns around and says, "Okay, hun." Can you imagine a lot of people who don't like being called things if you called them something and they said, "Please don't say that," and then you did it again? The Doctor should never be cruel or, put people down, even if it's a joke. You can see they're laughing about it. And I just thought, don't put that in an episode. From a story point of view, it actually backfired really badly, because if he was on the fence about liking the Doctor, down the track when, the Doctor is trying to do stuff, he obviously is now going to, not want to do what he says and push away from what the Doctor is saying. So I know what they're doing. Like, the Doctor is all funny and calls people babes now and things like that. But this is not the right situation. I really thought this shouldn't have been in it.
Yeah, so from my point of view, first it's sexual harassment, right? Especially considering that the soldier was aware of it and said, "Wait, don't do that." And of course, the doctor did it again, right? So, the next thing would be the guy comes over and punches the doctor's lights out. And of course, in another situation, if it was a male doctor saying that to a female soldier, the world will be up in arms, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely cracking the biggest shits on the internet, like you could possibly imagine. Sexual harassment of a female, but in this case, they've swapped it around and it was completely inappropriate. And the fact that they even left it in, you would have thought even the actors would have said, "Nah, we are crossing a big line here, and that's going to piss a lot of people off because it is so uncharacteristic for this character. They've never done it throughout their entire history, and now all of a sudden you're pushing the envelope. It would have been different, and you could have got away with it if the officer, as the soldier, didn't hear it, but the soldier did and responded accordingly. So that's really just like wrong."
The other thing, if the soldier had been particularly off to the doctor or something, maybe, the doctor's like pushing back,
Yeah.
but he hadn't. And what it did, the guy's name was Cassio. He's good with numbers. But the doctor like actually instigated that, and it was, inappropriate. And then he doubled down on it. So yeah, that was a big bad for me in this episode.
Chrissy's agreeing with me. Why is it exactly right? It shouldn't occur in the show at all because it is not like how the characters have been. The doctor's always had female companions, and at no point has he ever said, "To the best of my knowledge, hun, babe, chick, whatever." And just because he just met this guy off the bat, it was like, it would have been. You could have got away with it if he had said it just to Belinda and only she heard it, right? He's a cute guy or whatever, but the guy did hear it and was very unhappy about it. So.
Well,
I think they need to hang on. They need to go back and re-edit that scene and take that bit out because anybody watching that going forward, even my other half, Lynn, said, "What the frig? You don't call the guy babes." So even she picked up on it and was unhappy.
It's very different using, personal, almost endearing language like that with friends, where you know their boundaries, what it is to a complete stranger, a soldier. So you're totally right. If he called Belinda babes or hun or whatever, that's absolutely fine. He used to do that to Ruby, and Ruby called that to him, and it just shows a closeness. But if you go up to a guy anywhere and say that, you're risking getting punched.
Yeah, getting your lights beaten up. Exactly right. Anyway, we could dwell on it, but we're not going to dwell on it. We both agree it was a major downer on this episode. I can't imagine the internet just probably went burko over that sequence. Anyway, let's move on. Otherwise, we're just going to repeat ourselves. And off you go, sir.
Well, this is the sequence you were talking about, where she actually says, "There is nothing on my back," and does a full 360 around, and everyone at one point is directly behind her, and nothing happens. She does that to prove there's nothing there. And so, what are the rules? Does it instantly, you go behind it and you're dead, or does it pick and choose its victims? I think you're instantly dead, because later when the commander and officer kind of said, like, move round 180 as she moved round, it killed the person as soon as they were behind her. So I do think that was, if you're going to have rules in place for something like this, stick to them.
The only thing I could think of is if there was a form of aggression. So when she's turning around, she's looking at the other guy, and maybe she's in a calm state. But when the soldiers are in a form of aggressive, like, moments or whatever else, like when the guy walks around with the gun, he's clearly very antagonistic, even though he's not saying anything. I don't know, but I thought, hang on, she should be killing everybody as she's doing it 360.
It can't be a pick and choose thing, because when the doctor puts a mirror up, it does it to itself. So it wouldn't
fair
pick.
Point.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair point. Anyway, but I did like the fact that when the bad guy's opposite, and the captain's able to say, "Oh, can you just transmit over there and get Alice to turn around and kills him?" I thought, no, that's an interesting way of doing it. So very clever. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. He's behind you.
Yeah. So again, it's one of those things where I don't understand why when they first went down and they asked what's going on, she didn't explain. She kept saying this happened and that happened, and I don't know why. And then she totally changes the story and is like, yeah, there's this thing on my back, and if you go behind me, it kills people. Why would she not say to someone that before they go and check her back? It makes really no plot sense. If she says, I've got something on me, you really need to be careful, we can try and work it out. Maybe she's so scared and just wants to get off. But the point that she says that and says that and says that, and then just changes after saying, there's nothing there, it's all your imagination. I've got something on my back, it kills people if they go behind me. Why didn't you just say that at the start and stop the people getting killed?
Yeah, it's a fair point. The only thing I can think of, like you said, if she tells the truth after they've just walked in the room, they're just going to kill her. She's like, mate, she's a dodgy lady, so she's keeping her trap shut. But of course, at some point, if they had all said, yes, come with us, come with me if you want to live, walking in the corridor, the thing just would have gone completely burko. So, you are right. That was definitely a bit of a muck up there in regards to the narrative. This bit here, I got to admit, was kind of funny. It's like, it's pretty obvious who's who in the zoo, but there you go, dude.
Well, I did think they were trying to give Belinda something to do to make her look smart, and I'm like,
yep.
You needed to show that to, no, that it didn't actually explain anything more than we already knew by doing this sequence. And the other thing is, I don't know if you noticed this, after she did that, they do an above shot where it's a circle, and the doctor's like, you die at midnight, because that's directly behind, as midnight, which is also the name of the other episode. And I'm like, gee, they crowbarred this in, like, to get the doctor to say you die at midnight because midnight was the first story it was in, kind of thing. It's not a deal breaker. I thought this episode was great, but I was like, had a bit of a groan when I saw it.
I thought it was so funny. She sticks the metal thing down. Okay, that's Alice. This is us. And you go, all right, what else are you going to tell us that we didn't know already? And you go, well, if you go behind her over here and you go, is that it? It's like that. You actually needed things to explain that. Oh, you go.
And here's a Dalek.
Yeah, that was kind of, it's like, what? That's just dumb. So I got to admit that kind of didn't really work. But anyway, very, very cool. So this, and you say to Belinda, good on you, thank you. Like Captain Obvious. Well done. I love it.
Now, the other thing, after such a great episode, I thought they could have spent some more time working out a good ending. Shooting Belinda just above the heart, with a slight chance she might survive. I just don't think the doctor would have actually let them do it. They did, show that she was a crack shot and would be able to do it, but still getting shot millimeters above the heart by someone you don't really know. I do think the doctor would be, hey, we're all in this situation. Let's all calm down and see if we can work this out another way. And then she got shot and was instantly revived, and there was no repercussions at all. I thought that was a bit of a weak story twist.
I had no issue with it. The only thing I couldn't work out is when the soldier says to the doctor, "Are human beings similar to us?" And what if you had said, "No, you're actually completely different. Your internal organs are in completely different spots." You'd be going, so where's the heart? Is it on the foot, up here, up there? I mean, what are the chances that these aliens have the same physiology for the most part? I mean, even the docky says, for most part, yes. He doesn't say exactly yes. They're saying they're very similar. So what if the heart, is in the wrong spot compared to where they are? So I thought that was kind of funny, but I didn't mind it. I had no problem with it. I thought it kind of worked. So, it was all good. Now, this you put in the bads, and I'm curious to know why.
Look, I put this. This is the first time I've put Mrs. Flood in the bad, because this was the first one. I said, well, we saw this last year. This is just Susan Twist all over again. When she was living next door to the companions and this dotty old woman that would come out and talk to the doctor, fair enough. And even in the last episode, she was the same character outside the cinema. But this one, she's a totally different character. She's playing like a star commander or something like that. And I was just like, you know what? We did this all last year. And then the twist at the end was, she was one of Sutek's pawns. Couldn't they, if they, are doing the same kind of thing, had something totally different? It sort of is one of those things where I actually like Mrs. Flood turning up. This was the first one where she looks like a different character and playing it in a different way. And I've got all the different, Susan twists from last year under there. The other thing, which is a good, in the top corner there where you've got the girl talking to her, that was a really good spaceship. It looked movie level, the amount of details and stuff on it as well. So it's not like a terrible deal breaker, but I was just like, I saw this last year with Susan Twist.
I loved it. I think she's the best part of the entire show. It's like where's Wally? When's she going to pop up? And it's like that is very very cool. I like this one from Christy. Right, a human beings very similar to the blah 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 blahs. And it's like, oh yeah, the human heart was 3 degrees to the left, and Belinda gets totally blown away. And you go, well, murder! That kind of didn't work, did it? So,
What would have been
yeah,
really funny, the doctor goes, well, the human heart is there, and they just go, what's a heart?
yeah. So that could have been actually very, very cool. But yeah, the Mrs. Flood bit I thought was absolutely fantastic. I really, really like them. Guess what, fans? That's the end of the bads, believe it or not. So we're now getting into the ugly. So, which is questions that we want to bring up and things we want to discuss and things that have got us our brains racking. By and large, aside from that one bit in the show, I didn't think there were actually any real bads at all. But other than that, it was all very good, Mr. Aaron. So shall we move on to our uglies?
We'll pull up the first ugly stick.
There we go. Give it a whack, son.
So here we go. I thought this was very interesting. The imagery of the well is very similar to the ring. For anyone, this is spoilers, but if you haven't seen it, you're never going to see it. The ring is actually a well. What the ring is the girl who was drowned in the well looking up and seeing the ring is the edge of the well against the sun kind of thing. But what's really interesting about that, last week, Mr. Ringading talked about when you go into the abyss, he will be the last thing you see. Samara from the well climbs out of the TV. That's how she kills people. And then last week, you had the Doctor and Belle climbing out of the TV. These are probably not deliberate things they put in, but it is just interesting how they are both circular. Well spotted, Russell.
Captain Obvious comes in and strikes again.
So I did think it was interesting that just the week after we have an episode where the Doctor and the companion climb out of the TV, we have, sort of, I guess, crosses over with some of the imagery for another franchise where you have a character that climbs out of the TV, which is not a common event.
Well, I mean, half the episode was stolen from aliens anyway, so I guess if they're pilfering from other shows, why not pilfer from the ring as well, which is very cool. Yeah.
So we talked about this earlier. The TARDIS has no longer got a wardrobe. It's got a goodies quick change-o-matic. So, you see the Doctor. It is shown in one scene. It only takes seconds, and the music doesn't change. So I'm presuming they run in the top door or the bottom door. It dresses them and they come out the bottom, and it's instantly put them in the costumes they need to be in. That is the same as the goodies used to do, where Graham had the instant change-o-matic machine and they'd run in one side and run out the other side exactly how they needed to be dressed for that episode. I don't think that's a good or a bad thing. I just think it's a really new, interesting thing the TARDIS is doing.
It's almost the equivalent of sliding down the bat poles, isn't it, really? So it's quick, it's fast. I still don't know why they use the Poison song by from Belinda.
It was
Britney Spears. Why?
It was Toxic, and they've used that in the series. They've used that in the series before. In Russell T Davies' second episode, it plays on a jukebox way back 20 years ago. So they like to, I think, put a little Easter egg so people who remember that episode would remember that. For anyone else, no reason for them to play it at all.
Yeah, no worries. They would have had to spend money just buying the rights of the damn thing. But anyway, move on.
So this is what I was talking about earlier. Since the show has come back, whenever they've used a spacesuit, the first time they got one, it was in an episode called 42. But since then, they used the same one that it was in the TARDIS, and it's gone from sort of orange to red to orange again and things like that. But it's been pretty much consistent from David Tennant all the way through to Jodie Whittaker. And this is the first time they have changed that. And I believe that is because the Earth doesn't exist anymore. And so the TARDIS is picking up on that, and that style of spacesuit doesn't exist anymore. Sorry, I don't know if you picked up the other thing that's in the spacesuit.
Hang on. Yep.
One of the more interesting things was when it lands. It's a bit hard to see in that bottom picture because it's not clear. The spacesuit's boots have jetpacks in that slow them down when they land, and that's obviously, borrowed from Mr. Spock.
Star Trek 5. Yeah, exactly right. Which is very cool. You mentioned something, just gone completely blank as to what I was going to say that I thought was kind of cool. I'm going to move on. So more things that are cropping up there, Mr. Aaron.
Well, this again is a lot of this episode, let's just say, was a homage to some of the scenes in Aliens. The space suits with the lights on and the lights around the face were particularly reminiscent of the ones from Alien when they go into the abandoned derelict ship. Hadley's Hope, the if you look at the top there, that's Hadley's Hope. The refinery below that could almost have been the product. No, to the left is Hadley's Hope as
Oh,
well,
is it?
and that yes, and
Oh, okay.
that's a production design for Hadley's Hope, and underneath that, it's not as clear, but it almost looks like they ripped off the production design for the refinery they went to in this. So I watched it and I was like, that's pretty close to Aliens. And then they started dropping lines from Aliens and plot points from
Yeah.
Aliens. There were so many parallels with Aliens, I didn't put them in. There's one heartbeat, one life signature, which is the same as them finding Newt and things like that. They went through the colonists' rooms and they were all smashed up, and they found stuff. They didn't find broken mirrors or pull that up, but it was very, very similar. A lot of plot beats.
Yeah, so for those who haven't put two and two together, Hadley's Hope is the name of the base in Aliens on LV 426. And the fact they use the thing about nuking the site from orbit, that's like line from Aliens.
Yes.
What I was going to say, I do like the fact they keep making references that Earth and human beings, they don't know what they are. I thought that was actually quite cool. So Belinda be having kittens right about now, wondering what all that was about, which is particularly cool. And of course, we're now talking about gigantic moths, Mr. Aaron.
Well, I thought this was funny because they've forgotten the Doctor's already seen one. Belinda actually says, what's happened? It's been swatted by a giant moth. And the Doctor's like, imagine a moth that big. But in the Peter Capaldi episode, Kill the Moon, we find out, this is true, Dags, you're not going to believe this, the moon is actually an egg, and the egg hatches, and out of it comes a giant moth. So they already have seen the giant moth, and the Doctor must have forgotten about it.
Well, there you go. So, yes, no soggy donuts or gerbils, exactly right. And Greg has said something, look, he's right in War and Peace here. Something that irked me was how the technology represented it felt very basic for being 500,000 years in the future. However, these are not Earth humans, so presumably we are not anywhere near that far along in their existence as a civilization. They are aware of the old name, though, which I guess makes a lot of sense. I mean, the problem is if you try to be too futuristic, you alienate the audience and it becomes a very expensive episode, because then you've got to try and think, what would, human, like corporeal beings might not even exist 500,000 years from now. So, and sticking with the aliens quotes and the aliens gags.
Yeah, I did think you really don't often get such direct quotes from, one movie to a TV show. But in Aliens, they use that term, nuke it from orbit twice. Hudson said it first, and then at the end, Ripley says it, and Hicks completes it. And in this, you get it repeated as well, where at the beginning of it, you get the Sergeant Cassio says it first, and then the other sergeant at the end says that's what they're going to do. I do wonder, though, if it's got galtronic radiation that no one can survive, is really nuking it going to do any good?
So with Cassio, they should have said to him, I need to calculate the odds. Jeepers creepers, that's just wrong.
How come when I say he's good with numbers, that's a bad joke, and when you say calculate the odds, that's a good joke? I don't get it.
Yeah, I know exactly right. Now, actually, I have to think about it. I don't actually have the fun factoid thing because that's on another show, but this one is quite funny. Fun factoid, Tom Baker attended an alien screening with Lala Ward and Graham Croden, and during the scene where they go exploring the alien spaceship, he called out, "Why don't you go down and into the hold and bore it to death?"
He was quite against any motion picture or science fiction unless he was in it. He's quoted as going and seeing Star Trek 1 and calling it the motionless picture.
See, look at that. Christy likes my jokes. What can I say? Yeah. Oh, really? So he was the one, was he? Oh, there you go. Very, very cool. Good stuff. Geez, I forgot this was even up. So there you go, dude. Keep going.
Well, we have the conspiracy thing here, which is not going to happen, but I'm going to go there. Leading up to this, the production team let everyone know it's going to be a returning villain, and people were thinking the beast from the Satan pit or the flood, and it turned out to be the midnight creature. But how's this for a theory? The midnight creature is an invisible entity. And we know that Omega was banished to another universe and he has no corporeal body anymore. So what if the midnight creature is actually Omega trying to come back into our universe, and he is the one that waits, that was mentioned way back in Star Beast, and he is the god of antimatter? Wouldn't that be cool, Dags?
You did the same thing last week when you come up with this really wacky theory, and halfway through, I'm just like, what?
You've got to have
anybody else that's excited by that theory is I'm not.
You've got to have a sound button for crickets, I think, whenever I come up with my
I wait for at least Greg to go, oh my God, that is like the coolest thing ever. Russell thought that was funny, but no one else seems to be agreeing with you at the moment. So, yeah, whatever, dude.
It's the best I could come up with.
You lost me. I have a theory. There you go. Anyway, fans, that's the end of the slides. Make of that what you will. So, Greg King, yep, he's just said that, which in other words means he didn't understand it either. So, on the Rotten Tomatoes video there, Mr. Aaron, which is actually very, very cool.
Well,
and what? Go.
I was just going to say, probably I love this episode as much as last week's for different reasons, but from the lack of, bads and the amount of goods, I think everyone's going to realize this is going to get quite a good score.
Well, there you go. So as we always do, we wrote it on the master meter. So the less masters, the better it is. The more masters, the worse it is. And you went for the full, what would effectively be one master, which is like 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, Mr. Aaron. How good is that?
Yeah, it's about that. No one has scored no master yet, but I don't know if we've got a slide for that. But do you know what happens if it's in the green zone? There's a special rating it gets.
Yep, it is crinoid fresh, and Greg King is a very, very happy man at the moment. So,
yeah,
very good, Mr. Aaron.
So, did you enjoy this episode?
I did actually. I thought it was actually really well done. I like it parallels with a lot of other franchises, but having the twist with Alice being having the hearing impairment, I thought was actually quite good, and it was really well done, really well thought out. Very entertaining, and I actually thought it was kicked a lot of goals. So, but it's set a pretty high bar now. So whether they can keep that up and going for other episodes is yet to be seen. But for the most part, there was very little that was actually wrong with it, aside from one bit. But yeah, on that, all good, Mr. Aaron. Very, very enjoyable.
Excellent. That's high praise coming from a non-fan, so that's fantastic.
Yes. It was entertaining. That's how I sort of looked at it, and some nice twists to the story as well. And there's dead dudes, people getting killed on screen, Mr. Aaron. What is it with this show? Just racking up the body count. Very cool.
Maybe it's all in the doctor's head. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah, exactly right. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the episode. If you haven't done so already, be sure to check out the Sci-Fi Zone socials. They're bloody everywhere at the moment. But the most important thing of all, Mr. Aaron, is your shop, which is the coolest place to check out for Doctor Who merchandise. Is that right?
It's probably not the coolest place at the moment. I've switched my phone off and I'm not taking messages. At the moment, I'm trying to get ready for May the 4th, which is, of course, the Star Wars celebration that we always try and do something for at the shop. And we've had, as with always, it's the worst timing, where we've had collections of stuff come in and upstairs is bombed out and everyone's coming in and trying to look at stuff, and I just can't handle it. So I have just been hiding upstairs trying to get everything ready for the end of the week. So we'll see how we go. But yes, it's a cool shop. Come in and buy something. Then I don't starve.
Exactly right. And Russell just quickly said, how many times can something derivative of aliens actually be any good? In this case, it kind of works. And don't forget, if it is for a younger audience, there could be a lot of younger people who've never seen aliens. And for them, it would be very, very groovy. Good stuff. All right. Well, in that case, here, Mr. Aaron, we're going to buzz off. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will be back next week to see what Ruby Sunday's got going for her. Should be very cool, very exciting stuff. They can either do a really good episode or completely screw the pooch. What do you reckon about that, Mr. Aaron?
Oh, it's gonna be a bit. Gonna have to be diplomatic next week if the episode's no good, aren't I? Because we know the writer.
There we go. It's that episode. Oh, very exciting. Anyway, more news to come out next week regarding that, fans. So party hard, rock on. Enjoy your May the 4th this weekend. But, of course, I always wait for Revenge of the 5th, which is the coolest thing ever. And we will be back next week to talk about more about Doctor Who and some of Aaron's very, very exciting theories and opinions. What do you reckon, dude?
Well, Sean's mentioned our supply of Chronton crystals, but it's actually Chad's supply of Chad crystals we have in the shop. So I'll leave you on that note, however you wish to interpret that.
Oh, there
Yeah,
it is there. Okay, yeah,
may
gotcha.
the
Gotcha.
4th be with you.
Indeedy doody dory. And don't forget Comic Book Day, which is a very, very cool. That was the last thing I just pressed. All right, guys, party hard rocking. See you next week. Okay, bye for now.
See you guys.